talking about hypocrisy, right? So, you know, so after I reject the producer role, where I can write my own ticket with Leah Remini, I don't know, several months later, I don't know exactly what it's in reaction to, but several months later, she gets a hold of me and wants me to literally make a commitment to being in the ASC. And I'm like, look, I'm not a joiner. I'm not a sheep. I'm not a follower. I mean, if you haven't figured that out in the 2 or 3 years you've observed me, then, you know, you're really... And she said, no. It's like, if you're against them, we're together. And I said, you know, the problem is you want me to join a group with people that I have experienced and been involved with who are demonstrably, obviously, far more unethical, far more disloyal, far more criminal than any Scientologist I ever dealt with in 27 years I was within it. And yet, as much as you rail about it, you want to act in the very way, and you want me to then act in the very way that you accuse Scientology of acting. In other words, forget about all that stuff. If you're against them, you're with us. Okay? It's us versus them. Okay? And so if you're not with us, you're for them, basically, right? I told her no, right? So you know what her response was? Her response was, and by the way, before I give you her response, remember, the narrative that she's been capitalizing on for 3 years and the Troika's been capitalizing on for 3 years, central to the whole thing, which they go on and on about, is disconnection. In other words, because Scientology, if somebody becomes antisocial to the extent that they can't be reformed or lived with, people will disconnect from them. That is such a grievous crime to family and humanity that it justifies creating a cult to combat Scientology, right? I mean, that is the central... So when I won't join her group, she literally disconnects from me. And I mean in a way that they don't even accuse Scientology of. I mean, she told me, not only are you not to be in communication with me again, you must destroy all my contact information because I'm destroying yours. Okay? So that it's not just a command that you're not to communicate with me. It's, we're going to make it impossible for us to communicate again. So, I mean, it couldn't be a more explicit disconnection. And that was the response to me refusing to say, I'm going to give love, devotion, and surrender to this ASC cult of yours. Okay. Now, after Leah Remini disconnects from me when I refuse to join the cult, this is where the parallels go again, back to their narrative, you know, the ASC narrative. Scientology disconnects from you, and then if you keep defying, they ruthlessly attack you, right? So I do a couple of essays from time to time on my blog, which are sort of neutral on the subject of Scientology. I even felt that, I always felt that you needed to obtain some objectivity as to your experience in Scientology, or, if you walked, or even if you felt it was negative and you kept having reinforced on you that it is negative, you're going to get sicker and worse, right? It's like, okay. Like Scientology, like virtually any self-help philosophy, like virtually any religion, far more helpful to recognize that you're responsible for your own condition and move along and live and take the positive from your experiences, right? Okay, so I do a few, and boy, I tell you, the trachea starts going crazy, okay? Tony Ortega starts a smear campaign, and he runs it for 6 months, nonstop on me and my family. All right? They attempted to infiltrate my family. Okay, they attempted to drive wedges between my wife and me. When that failed, they literally took up a collection to hire private eyes to spy and harass us. And when that failed, they attempted to blackmail me. I literally received a blackmail threat that said, if you keep talking about the ASC, if you keep talking about the other side of the story or about our laundry, we are going to expose all of the crimes that you failed to disclose about your Scientology experience when you were in Scientology. And I laughed at that because unlike them, I'm the one person that's life has been an open book, and there's nothing I've ever held back, right? So go ahead. My response was make my day. Okay. Didn't hear anything for several months until the day before, literally the day before Leah Remini's January 2017 2020 special, right? What they did was they took, what happened was I hear from ABC 2020 asking me, hey, do you know a guy named Sergio? I said, no, I never heard of the guy in my life. Simultaneously, I get an email from Tony Ortega saying, Sergio Plame or Lame or whoever this guy is, says that he got raped by an adult male when he was a teenager in Scientology and that you found out about it and covered it up. Okay. So I got what was going down. This was the payback on the blackmail. They literally made it up. Okay. So I looked up the Sergio guy. He'd been going on for 3-4 months in the ASC troll farm, right? I mean, on its face, the guy was so incredible that he would say stuff one day that 3 days later he would absolutely contradict. His lack of credibility was just apparent on what he was saying with no refutation. He was that bad. So Tony Ortega, as he's waiting for my response, blogs, watch 2020 tomorrow. There's going to be explosive, and I mean explosive stuff. And it was clear to me it was going to be the Sergio Land cover-up, right? I wrote back to 2020, said I never heard of this guy in my life, but now I've heard from Tony Ortega and I understand what's going on. He's running his same op that he runs all the time. Mike Rinders explained it to me. Tony will run anything because he's got nothing to lose because he's a nobody with a blog. Okay? Scientology and nobody else is going to waste their time suing a guy who can never make good on whatever damage he does in the first place and, can blog from a shopping cart in an alley as well as he can from whatever apartment he's living in now. Okay? So he's literally got immunity from that respect to libel. Okay? And what he'll do is he'll put out the sleaziest, most criminal innuendo, right? With different little grains of truth mixed in and keep repeating it enough with the intention that tabloids at some point will start to pick it up. With the intention that he'll keep feeding the tabloid with the intention that ultimately, in this degraded age of infotainment and clickbait news, the quote-unquote legitimate media will pick up on it. And that's the only reason the blackmail didn't run, because I call ABC out on it. But they literally, that's how far they went. They blackmailed me. I told them, bring it. They had nothing to bring, so they literally manufactured something. They literally manufactured accusations of criminal conduct that never happened, that were so unfounded that no media would run with it, but came within an inch of having it broadcast nationally. Now, take my experience And you get a better perspective of the ASC and the Troika vis-a-vis Scientology, which they do the same gig day in and day out over a 7-year period.